Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the Publishing Now Fall 23 webinar, Improving Efficiency and Managing Your Costs, co-hosted by Westchester Publishing Services and Publishers Weekly. My name is Nicole Tomasi. I'm the Marketing and Conference Manager for Westchester Publishing Services, and I'm glad you could all join us today. I will be turning things over to our moderator, Jim Milliot, who you know as the Vice President and Editorial Director for Publishers Weekly, in just a moment. But before I do that, I just want to take care of a few general items as the rest of you are getting logged in and settled in for today's session. Just to let you know that your microphones are going to be muted throughout the webinar. So if you have any questions for our panelists, you can enter those at any time in the Q&A box that should be available at the lower portion of your screen in the control bar. Please bear in mind that we did receive a number of questions during the registration process, and we will answer those first, and then we will get to additional questions as time allows towards the end of the session. For those of you who are not familiar with Westchester Publishing Services, we are a U.S. employee-owned company that was founded in 1969, and in present day, we have global offices located in the U.S., the United Kingdom, and India. And from those locations, we support the needs of more than 500 publishers around the world who rely upon us for our editorial, production, and digital conversion services on over 10,000 publications each year. And in addition to that, our Westchester Education Division provides content development services for educational content providers and ed tech companies. You may recall when you were registering for this webinar that we asked a question about what areas of concern you had regarding your business during the next 12 months. And we offered these answer selections. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to respond to that. And the results were very interesting. As you can see in this graph here, the predominant concern that a lot of you have, with over 40% of you responding this way, is the ability to print books within your budgets. And a lot of you, about 20%, have concerns really about all the different areas that we asked about. Also in line with that, managing production costs and timelines. So certainly a lot to parse through here over the next hour. And what Jim and our panelists will step you through this afternoon are some of the things that publishers can consider to better manage costs and also improve efficiency throughout the publishing process. So with that, I'm going to step back and I'm going to turn things over to the stewardship of Jim.
Thank you, Nicole. How are we today, everybody? We picked this topic because while sales are down so far this year, according to BookScan, they're down about 4% through last week. Rising costs are just as big a concern for many publishers. As we all know, inflation has really driven up costs and expenses across the board over the last 18 months or so. And in my discussions with lots of people in the industry, they tell me that cash flow has never been more important. So to find ways that we can help everybody control expenses over the next year or so, we have assembled this panel here. Bill Rojack, Diem Bloom, and Padakis Lowry. I'm going to introduce everybody up front, so that way, once we get going, I won't have to interrupt the flow. So we'll first hear from Bill, who's the Vice President of Sales for Midland Paper Corporation. He has more than 25 years of experience in the paper business, specializing in sourcing and developing paper products, with a concentration in publishing and direct mail. Bill's interest in the environmental stewardship drew him to an early adoption of how popular sustainability trends in the paper sector can play out. This interest has also provided Bill an opportunity to develop achievable client procurement strategies in collaboration with global paper manufacturers and supply chain partners. While admittedly concerned by the quickening pace of change in the industry, Bill is engaged and energized by the many opportunities that such change presents. Next up, we'll have Diem Bloom, who's the Director of Publishing Operations for Book Division of Johns Hopkins University Press. In this role, she oversees the design, manuscript editorial, and production teams, and works directly with directors across Johns Hopkins Press in strategic planning and process work and workflow initiatives. Diem has been publishing for 25 years, having worked in India for service provider Nugent and in the US for publications like Modern Language Association, Oxford University Press, Simon & Schuster, and Walters Kluwer. And third up will be Marina Padakis Lowry. She's the executive managing editor of Union Square and Company, which is the trade publishing arm of Barnes & Noble. In this role, she brings more than 2 decades of professional publishing experience in managing editorial and design operations. Her responsibilities have included budgeting and strategic cost containment, introduction of speed to market and electronic workflows, and brand management. Marina has overseen projects for well-known authors and brands in culinary, lifestyle, reference, and young readers genres at publishers such as Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, HarperCollins, and Penguin Random House. So without further ado, Bill, the stage is yours.
All right. I'm going to walk through a series of different slides here. I'm going to keep it fairly high level, but I think what's important for us all to concentrate on here, looking at your responses to the questions, that managing costs is paramount to all of us right now in getting our books both printed and delivered out in the marketplace. I'm here really to wear 2 hats. Today, I'm talking about the overall supply chain. Not only do I sell paper into the book publishing space, I also sit on the board of the Book Manufacturers Institute, the BMI. So I'm here a little bit to represent some of the change, not just in paper, but also in print book manufacturing, so that we can really talk about not only what we're up against, but what the new landscape looks like. So I'll call it transformational, and then I'll back it up with a series of infographics, not a lot of data to put you all to sleep. So let's go to the next slide. And we'll talk about paper first. We all know that the paper market has changed dramatically recently. Since 2017, certain sectors of the paper business has lost more than 50% of its capacity for good. It's gone, whether it's been turned off or converted to make other products, whether it's packaging related or tissue or something different. I offer this as a background to all of us, because you see, now I started in this business in 1994, and there were a lot more papers for me to sell and an awful lot more papers for you guys to buy as an ecosystem, a publishing ecosystem. The point is, there's been such a ginormous roll-up over the course of these years that this is one example. The Mead Corporation that we once knew is now called Billerud. Even Billerud Korsnäs, which is a Swedish concern, publicly traded, has been rebranded Billerud. Verso was acquired by them. The big news that sort of came out just today, there's been murmur about it, is that Billerud is slowing down the conversion of the Escanaba paper facility in Michigan. That's the one that makes New Era Matte. That's had everybody on the edge of their seat thinking that New Era Matte's going to go away in 2025. Well, Billerud has just announced that because of economic conditions, chief among them interest rates, and considerably slower demand, they are slowing down their plans for that conversion. We expect that it will continue to go forward. We don't know when, but it doesn't look quite as imminent as it did. Having said that, there is change all around us, and the one thing you can bank on is more change. Paper mills right now are running at egregiously low operating rates. Their paper machines are running in the 60 percentile range, maybe to 70% in some cases, some in the 50s. That's not sustainable. And if you're wondering why the, say, price decreases haven't come as quickly as maybe you expected in a slower paper market, it's because the mills that are left are trying like crazy to keep their prices up, even though their input costs are down, because they don't have a lot of orders going across those machines. The orders that they do have, they have to get an adequate return on in order to justify keeping those machines running and keeping them alive. Otherwise, if those prices fall, and their margins get squeezed, we're going to lose more capacity. It's coming. I don't know when, but we need to get operating rates back up. And that's really important for all of you to understand. This slide goes to the coated paper market, but the same is true with the uncoated paper market, okay? If we can go to the next slide. So this also is part of the paper market, and it's a huge part of the paper market. You all might have noticed or heard that in the last few years, Paper Excellence bought Catalyst Paper. Catalyst was smaller in our book space. They had some paper production out on the West Coast. They're a roll-up of many different companies. In the end, they were the first company consolidated into Paper Excellence. Well, then in 21, Paper Excellence bought Domtar. That's a really big deal, obviously. Domtar being the largest uncoated white paper manufacturer in North America. They represent around 35% of all of the capacity of uncoated white in North America. You can see all those brands and names that make up who Domtar is and has been. It's an awful lot of mills and an awful lot of machines. Now, some of the machines along the way have been shut down or repurposed. But for us, and what's important at this discussion is that Domtar is now a Paper Excellence company. Domtar then purchased Resolute this year. That deal was finalized at the beginning of this year, and Resolute is now a Paper Excellence company. Technically, Domtar bought them, but Domtar being an operating company of Paper Excellence, it's all one umbrella. Why is that important? Well, it means that there's one new leadership team for all three of these companies. Obviously, each one of them has their own different sets of drivers. What drives uncoated white in sheets is very different than what drives, let's say, rolls of uncoated groundwood or newsprint, obviously. But as this market continues to consolidate, we should expect decisions to be made differently. And Paper Excellence as a company is going to have a very different outlook on what they need and expect from each one of the assets that they've acquired that the legacy companies that they've acquired did when they were on their own, right? So again, the message here is tremendous amounts of consolidation, not just over the course of the last 20 years, but within the last 8 months. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Then as it relates to book manufacturing, we put this infographic together for you as well. In the same sort of vein as we're talking about with paper, the same is true for us as a book publishing ecosystem. Unbelievable amounts of consolidation in the book manufacturing space. As I'm training new people into the paper business as it relates to book publishing, I'm explaining to them that the difference between a book manufacturer and a printer is a very distinct and important one. And that is that regular printers don't have the binding manufacturing experience, knowledge that a book manufacturer does. And so I offer you this landscape for you to see. And this slide's not perfect. There are a few others there that are not represented here. But this was my first crack at it. You'll see that our ecosystem is now controlled maybe 80% by 3 companies. There are some other big ones that still remain, but it's so important for us to realize as we start talking about the next 12 months of managing our costs that I think we need, my message to you, it's more than what I think, it's what I know. We have to swing the conversation away from price toward cost. What is your total cost to deliver that product all the way through its life cycle, including inventory? There is new technology that every one of the companies in front of you represented, and then the rest of the book manufacturers have invested big money in over the course of the last several years to support the North American book manufacturing market, for publishers to be able to produce their products here in North America. And if we, as an ecosystem, don't support those companies with those new investments, they're going to go away. And then we're going to be forced to produce our products overseas. That's not what we want. We need to manage our businesses differently, given the new and different ecosystem. That's what I'm here to talk about. And I'll stop talking.
I'm sure you'll talk more later, Bill. Diem, the stage is yours.
Thank you. So I'm in the EDP area, so editorial design and production. And so this is an area where we spend a lot of money and we take a lot of time. And people would like us to spend less money and take less time. So there's always been pressure, I think, to figure out how to save money, make the best use of it. And especially in this time period where any efficiencies that that my team and I are realizing then gets eaten up with paper costs. So it's a very tough battle to try to participate in each time. But in terms of costs, I like to look at it from a couple of different perspectives. In terms of managing costs, there is spending less money if that's possible, or looking for ways to get more for the money that we do have, and ultimately just to sell more books. And so those three different areas of costs really drive the types of process changes we're looking at, or the different approaches we're looking at, and the different partners we're working with. So in Johns Hopkins, where I'm working now, we've done a couple of things, I think, over the past few years to sort of rejigger our workflows. For example, some of the things that we've changed from how we historically worked was we started working, we were hard coding our manuscripts. And so now we've moved into working with vendors, doing pre-editing and tagging. So doing more of that, preparing the manuscript for editing out of house. And we also, for example, started having vendors do some art logging for us. And this is something where these things are helpful for our acquisitions team for tasks that our EAs were doing. And in the case of art logging, we're getting something more back from that than we had previously, which is, we're asking for, we are getting PDF contact sheets, but we're also getting PDF catalogs. So basically, we just have a PDF that's easy to email that shows how big that image can be, versus the size of the paper, so that it's easier for our copy editors to look at, for our editors to look at, so that we can make some of these decisions earlier on about the art. We've also been looking into full service project management. And a lot of the driving force behind that is around how do we sell more books? A big part of that is, we can look to make more books, which will require more people, or we can do a better job of selling the books that we already have. And part of that is making sure that my team has those books ready when our marketing team needs to have them, so that they can be sold at the most optimal time. So full service project management for us is a way for us to really expand our in-house team to manage the peaks and valleys, so that we have a home for any title that comes in from our acquisitions team. We've also looked at various little sort of little changes here and there that we've been experimenting with. Like, for example, we just started having a vendor create some of our back ads. So this is something where some of the other things I've mentioned are directly helpful to our editorial team and our production team. This one is helpful for our marketing team. So it frees them up from having to create back ads for all of the books that they would like to have them for, which means that we can have them in more books, we can have them customized, and then they're just flowing through as part of the composition process. We've also been working with vendors and freelancers for design and reworking art. So a lot of it is the skills that we've always had in-house, we also have partners out of house that we can turn to for overflow. And I think with very many other people right now as well, we're really looking into what AI is going to be able to do for us. So we're in the early stages, but there's so much potential there for us to be able to, again, look at ways where we can spend less money or get more for our money, or just help us to sell more books. So those are a lot of things that we're looking into at this point.
Thanks very much. I have a feeling we may address AI later on. But for now, Marina, it's all up to you.
Okay. So I have a similar but somewhat different job from our previous presenter. And as Jim mentioned, I'm currently the executive managing editor of Union Square & Co. I oversee the managing editorial, production editorial, design operations, and reprints teams. Having seen the concerns that you all noted on the pre-webinar survey, I'm going to highlight and address a few items for you. Having been at a number of publishing companies, big 5 to mid-size to small, I have noticed a lot of inconsistency in policy and process in the pre-production area. We at Union Square are consistently reviewing our costs that directly affect PPB in particular. So, part of printing within budget is keeping tabs on your plate costs. So I'm going to go over a few things that, in my experience, have proven to save some time and money and could help you think about your own policies and processes and look at areas, perhaps, that you might have overlooked. I'll address these in a sort of chronological order as they occur in the life cycle of the project. They'll seem like small things, but having control of these items will ultimately help you save time and money by avoiding a lot of expensive boo-boos. So at the acquisition, P&L, and contract stage, is someone other than editorial and the publisher reviewing these? Is the acquisition P&L reviewed for plate and other costs? Do editors have guidelines for realistic cost assumptions to use when they're doing their P&Ls? If they do not, consider providing a template of assumptions based on page or word count for them to use. Is that P&L first print quantity realistic? Editors often have the temptation to increase quantity to get their P&L to work. So you don't want to discover too late that the print quantity sales actually wants is a fraction of the P&L quantity. Find yourselves at the negative margin and kiss your reasonable PPB goodbye. Plug in that P&L review when the book comes into production. So much can change in the time between acquisitions and transmittal. On the contract, you want to be looking at your author delivery timelines. Is someone in managing ed reviewing these to ensure there will be ample time between delivery and your anticipated pub date? Do you have a process in place for rush or crash titles? Is there a pub date required by contract? Know if there will be a rush to plan for. And are there costs that could be charged back to author royalties, for example, like the book's index? Again, it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but when you add it up over 200 titles, $1,500 per title, it's a lot of money. How do you budget and structure your freelance fees? We're all reliant on freelancers in this industry. Are your fees per hour, per page, or is there a set fee for the project? Whatever system you use, it's really important for these to be budgeted and predictable. It's worthwhile to take the time to structure your fees if you do not. And if fees are hourly, make sure you've set a cap for each project. Further, consider using a work for hire contract if you do not already do so. Create a template that outlines fees, timing, and deliverables, which will protect both you and your contractor and ensure that you're keeping your costs in line. As you move on to transmittal, manuscript preparation, which was touched on. Do you have guidelines for your manuscript preparation? You want to make sure you're getting your transmittals in good condition and the correct format. If you print frequently overseas, ensure your editors in managing it have content guidelines. Many printers, particularly those in Asia, will not print books containing certain material. Address this before transmittal. Don't get your book sidelined at the printer because you referred to the Dalai Lama or to COVID. Manuscript coding. Are you using set codes and templates? It's important to be using consistent coding within your organization. Your Word and InDesign template coding language should match. This will avert a lot of avoidable and expensive issues and will also help ensure that you have nice, clean files when you need to convert them to ebooks or other products. Freelance guidelines. Any guidance that you can provide to your copy editors, proofreaders, vetting, vendors, and indexers is incredibly helpful. Be clear with your editorial freelancers about the level of edit you want, how to query, and best practices for markup. You don't want to be paying them for things that you don't want. Style sheets. Ensure that you have house style guidelines and you provide them. Have a style sheet template for copy editors to use to ensure you're getting the style notes you need. If you have series, ensure there's a series style sheet and ensure it gets updated with each new title. This will save a lot of hassle down the line. For composition, I'm in a house where we used to do 100% of comp in-house. I have now, in my tenure, moved 90% of our comp out of house. This has provided us with multiple benefits, including needing fewer in-house staff, structured and predictable fees, and a lot of time savings. If a schedule is running late, we can rely on our composition vendor to do a rush and make up the time we lost. We're also able to keep a set of templates on file with them so they can pick them up, run pages out for us for a cast off or a galley that we need quickly. Having that turnkey set of templates is helpful in many formats. And then you want to check other services that your comp or other vendors provide. Packaging services is a proven way to save time and money. So, for example, our comp vendor is also handling our ebooks using the files that are already in their possession. It's fewer steps for our staff and costs less than taking them out and then using another external vendor, all in one place. We have also used them for cleaning up older, messy reprint files, typing manuscripts from out-of-print books, preparing manuscripts for comp, and full-service project management, soup to nuts. So think about what other time sucks exist in your organization. Talk to them and see what they can do for you. Sometimes you are surprised what kind of add-ons you may be able to do. And as a final sidebar, I do want to address AI, which has been a very hot topic lately in our industry. I do think that there are some very exciting and helpful tools that are being developed that can help out with tedious tasks in my area, like coding, comparative proofreading, checking spellings, looking for bad breaks, things like that. We are looking into these as they certainly could help save not only time and money, but wear and tear on in-house staff. Do I think that these tools can replace people? No, I don't. Realistically, people still need to check AI work as you would review the work of any freelancer. And I'm also not open to having freelancers who exclusively use AI tools for their work, which has started to happen. But I am excited to have these tools available that will make our jobs easier. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. We're going to address a couple of questions that were submitted earlier before the panels actually started. There are a couple of themes that I'll have, I guess, Bill maybe answer first, and then the other two to if you could join in. And it seems to be, Bill, sustainability seems to be an issue that people are getting more and more interested in. Is there a way, given the economic conditions now, that sustainability and economic trends can kind of coexist?
There is. So it's an important point, right, Jim? this dialogue, many of you have probably heard me say this through the years, right? In my 30 years of doing this, the conversation started with recycled fiber, then it moved on to certified fiber, FSC, SFI, and the like. And then it's moved again now to carbon and carbon impact. That doesn't mean, now that we're talking about carbon, that we're no longer talking about forest certification or recycling, right? But those are the three steps or three legs on the stool of sustainability conversation with regard to paper, right? And FSC and the forest certification programs also go to indigenous peoples, and there's a human component to that as well. Having said that, you know, if you're going to look at the cost implications of each one of these, recycled fiber adds in most cases, when you have an integrated paper mill that makes its own pulp and feeds the paper machine on site, by going out and buying recycled fiber and adding that into the system, you are hurting the efficiency that the machine was built for. And so you're adding costs. Never mind that fiber needs to be collected, de-inked. There's a process that goes with that. So there's typically a cost that goes with recycled fiber. That I don't think will ever change. And in fact, as we are using and consuming less paper, less fine paper, we have a smaller basket of recycled fiber that's good to be used for printing paper. Most of it's going to go to tissue and carton board and packaging materials. So scarcity equals price increase. So you should expect to pay, in most cases, for recycled fiber. Forest certification, as adoption has continued in that realm, the costs have gone down, but there is a cost for landowners to certify their land. There's a much bigger discussion here about where we are regionally and who owns the land, whether it's owned by big governments or if it's owned by private landowners. Here in the US, a lot of our land is owned by private landowners, and it is prohibitively expensive for me as a family private landowner that has 300 acres that may never plan to harvest my land to go ahead and certify that to FSC or one of the other standards. So it raises a different set of issues, but there's cost involved for all of us. Then we get to the carbon discussion. Look, decarbonizing is the goal, right? Decarbonizing paper. For any of you who have already gone down the road to figure out what your carbon footprint is for either as a company or for a particular product as a book, you're realizing that your scope 3, namely paper, is probably the largest contributor to your carbon impact. And that's true for everybody on this call. Having said that, paper companies are working hard to try to decarbonize themselves. And there's a lot to that discussion. But in the end, what I think we're all going to end up having to do is offset some of that carbon impact, and that costs money. And I don't think that goes away, but it's incumbent on everybody on this call, since you asked the question, Jim, around sustainability, to understand the cost implications of all of those things and manage them, not just as cost, but as risk into your go-forward strategies around sustainability.
Okay, not sure if that's a challenge to Diem and Marina, but can you pick up on that? And, you know, does your individual companies have specific environmental guidelines or targets they're trying to hit?
Well, I'll start. I mean, for us, we're a relatively small publisher, so we don't do sourcing of our paper. We rely heavily on our printers to get the paper for us. And I think we don't have super strict guidelines right now in terms of sustainability. I think a lot of our focus is more on, you know, with our limited resources, other issues such as accessibility and things of that matter. So I wish we were doing better. I hope we can do better at some point.
Okay. Marina?
Yeah, we're in a similar boat. We're not particularly large among publishers, although we are under the Barnes & Noble umbrella. They have their own sustainability guidelines, but as far as the selections we make for printing and so on, they tie more to cost than anything else at this point.
Okay. Bill, when you were talking about in your opening remarks about total costs and new technologies, I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about how digital printing is impacting all of this, and then maybe after that, if Diem and Marina, you could pick up on what your view towards digital versus offset is.
Sure. So now I'm going to put my BMI hat on, but it's also, if you will, it's been a flag I've been carrying for a long time, and it sounds a little bit counterintuitive to think that a paper salesman is going to be advocating for lower paper sales. But in fact, that's what I've been doing, and I'm still sort of doing it. It's not so much less paper sales as it is smarter business, right? And that is the sustainability story of book publishing. What nobody has talked about in a meaningful way, in a sustainability context, is the amount of waste that we produce as an ecosystem. The amount of books that we return and destroy. It's unconscionable. It's terrible. And it's an incredible cost center for us. Has it gotten better? It's gotten much better throughout the course of my career. And it's gotten much better since COVID. It's gotten much better since there are, non-returnable policies with some of the big retailers now. It's gotten better since the way we procure books as consumers has changed, right? We don't necessarily walk into bookstores the way we used to. Now we click a button, it's delivered to us. All of this matters. And it goes to the overseas discussion also, and it goes to, frankly, paper manufacturing. The investments that the book manufacturers are making right now, yeah, there's some big web capacity still going in, but most of it is in some sort of digital or inkjet capacity to support smaller runs that can meet just-in-time demand. I know every book has its own P&L. I get that. But I'm here not as BMI, not as Midland, but as Bill, to ask, to implore the publishers on the line, please stop thinking about the price that you have to pay and start thinking about the total delivered cost. That includes the inventory, the obsolescence, the freight, all the rest of that. That is a massive impact that your ultimate P&L is going to look much better long-term if we manage our runs to where they need to be. There's still this concept of fear of lost sale being the main driver of our business, and in many, especially in the trade side. And in many cases, we need to change that paradigm. In most cases, we need to change that paradigm. And that digital print market, that digital print system that's being set up for us is there to help us. Now, if all the publishing community right now were to swing all of their titles to POD and inkjet, it would be overwhelmed in 30 seconds, right? So I'm not advocating. I get that. But the quality is there now, and the ecosystem has grown to such an extent now that I'm asking every one of the publishers, please, just think differently about it, because that's how we're going to make our paper supply better. That's how we're going to make our book manufacturers better. That's how we're going to make, ultimately, our publishing better.
All right, thanks, Bill. Bill put a lot out there, Diem and Marina. What's your take on what he said?
I think Bill is right. And I am a big proponent of, for us to try not to overprint. And for us, it definitely is a mind shift, a shift in mindset in terms of looking at the P&L, not from sort of like how much does each individual book cost, but again, that whole cost of, shipping the book, the manufacturing of it, and then also the opportunity around it. And with digital printing, I've been a big fan of digital printing for a really long time. And the caveat there is I'm not in art book publishing or anything like that. So I can, the quality is perfect for me. So for us, it's, also as an academic publisher, I mean, we have our mission to disseminate information as widely as possible. And so there is a component of how do we get our books available to all sectors of the world as much as possible. And that's going to require multi-channel printing. That's going to require really focusing on digital, not relying on the one massive offset run and then shipping that all over the place. So it's definitely, for us, it's rethinking how we do our manufacturing, one from the perspective of accessibility, and then also from the perspective of, what are our options going forward? So we've in the past spent a lot of time and effort really optimizing, for example, our files and our art for offset printing. But that same file won't serve us as well when we're looking at using this POD printer in the UK and this POD printer in the US and doing a short run here and an offset run there, and then also ebooks and all of that perspective. And so for us, it's very much of like thinking about all the different ways that we're going to be distributing these books later, in terms of physical books, electronic books, geography. What can we do upstream? What decisions do we make differently so that we make that available for ourselves? And so in many cases, we have definitely changed our print run sort of strategy. We do a lot more POD upfront for things. And a lot of this, I think the COVID really sort of kicked it into high gear, because it was definitely a case of, do you want digital books or do you want no books whatsoever? And so I think that was something that really got people more comfortable with multi-channel printing and digital in a way that maybe they hadn't been before. So I'll turn it over to Marina if you have other things to add in there.
So it occurred to me that 20 years ago, I was working at PRH, and we thought for sure that most books that we sold here, say in 2020, 2023, would be primarily ebooks. We were very wrong. And the reason why is because the reality is that readers want physical books, and they want a book that feels nice in their hands. Do we have to use the heaviest paper? We do not. However, we do have basic quality standards. And, I mentioned P&Ls earlier. We have these P&L print runs. Obviously, we try to keep them as small as we can, but, keep costs in line. Sometimes we have to look at these larger quantities because it's a fight with the costs of acquisition and the royalties we have to pay. We lose our shirts on some of these books, paying these advances and so on. So, how do you make money in this industry? I will say that there are things that we do try to do. We tried, for example, to go to digital galleys only, which also did not work because there are many reviewers who only will take a print galley. It's really deeply disappointing in this day and age that we still have to print galleys, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, that said, we do them on the cheapest possible paper and, that type of thing, so we can reduce the impact. We try not to overprint them, but unfortunately, that's what it is. Some of the things that we do try to do, though, we do try not to be wasteful. For example, if we've had a hardcover that didn't do well, we will strip and rebind it instead of printing new paperbacks. For example, we will try to recycle as much as we can, or perhaps down price so things don't get actually destroyed. That's always going to be our first thing to do rather than actually destroying anything. Environmental impact, not great, but this is what the industry is at this moment. It would be nice to see more digital products, but as I say, people like that book in their hands.
Right. No, understandable. Phyllis, I think it was sort of directed at you. There's a publisher here says they're doing a vast majority of their printing domestically. But is there anything else the publishing industry can be doing to protect the domestic publishing industry?
Right. No, right. For somebody who is printing domestically already, I'm
Right.
not so sure. I'm not so sure that this falls to them. On the other hand, when it comes to any of the publishers who are looking to produce overseas, I ask that you just give a second consideration to the North American footprint and think more than just price and total cost of ownership instead. And that means risk, right? I know that you're already doing it. You have to. I get that. But those risks are big, and they include losing your North American source of supply as an option. And that needs to be weighed in there. The other thing I'm going to say in response to that, because I think paper was somewhat brought up in that question, I think it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that we are maximizing the efficiencies of the entire channel. So if there is a printer in, pick a state, Missouri, who likes to use a particular sheet of paper because that sheet of paper has optimal throughput on their machines, they've got a great relationship with the mill, it's a really good ship to, it's close to the distribution center of the publisher, et cetera. They like the roll sizes. The publishers like we need to think about the ecosystem rather than just the project, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I have a specific one here for Diem. When you have vendors handle tasks due to overflow, are these costs included in the book P&L?
Some of them are, and some of them we're honestly still trying to figure out how to sort of account for it. So some of the costs are small enough that we put in there, and they're almost kind of an exchange of one for another. For example, we send out our books to be pre-edited and tagged, and then sometimes they go back to the vendor, sometimes they go to our freelance copy editors, sometimes we work on them in-house. And in that case, it's something where that cost is probably offset by whatever the freelance copy editing cost would have been to manually tag those things. In some cases, we have new costs that are being added in, such as the art logging or creating the back ads. And in that case, what we're not seeing on the individual P&L is how much time that saves for the relative departments who would otherwise be working on that. Project management is a big one because it's such a big cost. And so that is something that really hits the P&L really heavily. And that's because we don't historically account for staff time into our P&L. And the reality of it is, if we did, they wouldn't look nearly as good as they do at times. So this is one of those sort of situations where it's really looking at, on paper, we take a hit on this, but what is actually, how does it feed into the larger process, the way that we operate as a larger publisher? And so we have cost savings elsewhere, or we have improved relations elsewhere, or we have less burnout elsewhere, all these other things that don't necessarily make it into the P&L.
Okay, great. We have a question here. I don't think our contract with the distributor will let us make books non-returnable, not even POD. What would it take to make the shift in the industry? I can answer that. And maybe our publishers can comment. It is never going to happen. They've talked about it for a really long time. And Diem or Marina, do you think I'm wrong?
I do not think you're wrong. No, I remember the hazy, lovely days when Amazon was not returning things. Those days are over. Yeah, I don't see any possibility of that going back the other way. You know, unfortunately, it's a buyer's world.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, okay. Well, we've got a few minutes left, and Diem and Mariana, you both talked about the touch on AI. And Diem, I heard you on an earlier webinar not that long ago talk about AI and Hopkins. Could you maybe just capsulize what you talked about there, and then we'll give Marina a chance. And Bill, I don't know what's going on in the printing side, but maybe we'll get to you third.
Yeah, I mean, for us, our director is very excited by AI. And so she's very encouraging of us to look into it responsibly. And so it's definitely one of those things where we see a lot of potential. We're not quite there, I think, with getting exactly what we would like to get out of it, but I think it's a matter of time for some things. And for example, we've started doing some closed tests with some partners around the possibility of using AI for indexing, for abstracts and keywords, for generating alt text, because we're all on that same deadline of 2025 for the EU, and doing chapter abstracts, writing marketing copy. So we're experimenting with partners, I think in a safe and responsible way in all of these areas, so that I think we'll be in a better position to incorporate some of these tools when these tools are, publishing ready, I guess.
Right, right. Marina, what's your take on it over there so
Yeah,
far?
I mean, I like to see AI tools as a help, not a replacement. Quite a bit of it is out there. It does not fully replace people when you are dealing with words. It can find misspellings, but it doesn't necessarily know that misspelling is the wrong word in that context. For example, it might be the correct spelling of something else. And I absolutely think that having these tools at our disposal is great. Anything that can save us time, wear and tear on my staff. I mean, I have 6 production editors and we put out 300 front list books. Anything that can help save them time and save us a few bucks for, not having to pay the freelancers to look for certain things like bad line endings and so on. That's always a helpful thing. But I would not hire a freelancer, for example, who, says that they will only proofread using AI tools. What do I need them for? I can do that. So I still want a person reading everything. We have quality standards that have to be met, and it's still the case that people do that job the best for the moment. But the advice with AI tools now is that the tool that you see today is the worst it's ever going to be. It's always going to improve. So who knows where we're going to be in a year, 5 years with these kinds of tools. I don't know, but I still don't want a computer writing books for me.
I think that's a great idea. Bill, I mean, what's the talk in printing circles about AI?
Well, I'm going to give a nice plug to PW and to Ken Brooks. As much as I know about AI as it relates to publishing was with Ken Brooks' article in PW. I don't know if it was last month or the month prior. So anybody here who has not read it, go out and do that, because I thought it did a great job of summarizing the opportunity. He's obviously bullish on AI. We all can poke holes in it. And know what the dark clouds feel like and seem like on the horizon. But I thought he did a really nice job of putting together where he sees the opportunity, to Marina, to your point, rather than replacement, but in sort of in helping us along the way. As it relates to printing, I think, at least my experience, is less with AI and more with tech just in general. And the 2 biggest movements that I'm seeing are in cobots and in on the floor cobots. that are doing the jobs that certain people just don't want to do, and we don't want people doing, lifting and moving all day long. And then also, we're back to the POD and inkjet conversation. These are printers. These are computers that are running these books. It's incredible. You push a button and it goes and it creates a book for you on the spot. So there's tremendous technological revolution. And back to my word, transformation. And it's creating opportunity for us. Sure, it's a little scary, but I think it's a good thing. I got 20 years left in this business. I can't wait to see what happens.
Okay, 20 years and counting, no doubt.
That's right.
So,
My wife
okay,
wants
I've been
15.
told, I've been told by one of our sponsors, Nicole, that our time is up, and I'm turning it over to her for some closing remarks. On behalf of PW, we thank you for joining us, and particularly thank our speakers who did a really great job.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you to our panelists for a very informative hour. And we hope that our audience found the information useful and that you picked up some strategies that you can use in your business to make things run more smoothly in the year ahead. I also want to singularly say a big thank you to Jim Milliot. As many of you know, he has led this webinar session over the past few years, moderating it. And as a lot of you also know, he is going to be retiring from PW at the end of the year. So he's not probably going to be moderating these webinars in the future. And I just want to take my hat off to him and say thank you so much for making these sessions as successful as they are.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure doing these with you. Back to the task at hand, I just want to let our audience know that within the next week, we will be sending out a link for this video, as well as the questions and answers, and some other content related to today's session. And if you could take a minute at the close of the webinar and just answer the 2-question survey that will come up on your screen. It helps give us some feedback regarding if we hit the mark on the information that we were presenting, and what other ways or topics we can bring to you in the future. So you could grab that link there or just wait for it to come up on the screen at the end of the session. Additionally, if there are ways that we can help you, we are here to help our clients and colleagues throughout the publishing industry to identify solutions that will help you with any editorial or workflow challenges that you may be experiencing. So if you have any questions in that regard, or if you have any comments about today's session, please send them to the attention of Tyler at the email address there, or you can send them to me as well. So with that, thank you all for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.